You get paid on Friday. By Sunday night, you're not entirely sure where it went. Not all of it, you know where some of it went. The rent came out automatically, you saw the notification. You filled up the gas tank, you bought groceries, though you spent more than you meant to because you went to the store hungry and without a list, which you swore you would stop doing. You ordered food once, maybe twice, you bought something online, something you needed, or at least something that felt necessary in the moment. You paid the minimum on one of the cards because the due date was coming up. But the total of those things, the sum of what you can actually account for, does not equal what was in your account on Friday morning. There is a gap, not a dramatic one, not a catastrophic one, just a quiet, nagging gap between what came in and what you can explain. A leak somewhere in the system that you cannot quite locate because you were not watching closely enough when it happened. And here's the part that sits with you on Sunday night when the week is about to start again. It is not that you spent irresponsibly. You did not do anything obviously wrong. You did not make a single decision that you could point to and say that was the problem. You just drifted. You moved through the week spending in response to whatever presented itself, and by the end of it, the money was largely gone and the account was thinner than it should be, and you're starting Monday already a little behind. This is what an unmanaged dollar does. It drifts. Not because you are careless or undisciplined or bad with money, but because a dollar without a job description will always find its own work. And the work it finds on its own is almost never the work you would have assigned it if you had been paying attention. This video is about paying attention, not in an anxious, obsessive, check your bank account 17 times a day kind of way. In a deliberate, structured, clear-eyed way that puts you in charge of every dollar before the week begins, rather than trying to reconstruct where it went after the damage is done. The system we are going to talk about today is called zero-based budgeting. And despite what the name might suggest, it has nothing to do with having $0. It has everything to do with giving every dollar a specific job before you spend a single one of them. When you do this well, when you genuinely assign every dollar that comes in to a specific purpose before it has a chance to drift, something shifts in your financial life that is hard to describe until you have felt it. The drift stops, the leaks close, and for the first time, you're not just reacting to your money, you're directing it. Let us start from the very beginning, because the concept is simple, but the implications run deep. A zero-based budget starts with one foundational rule. Income minus expenses equals zero. Not because you have spent everything, because you have assigned everything. Every dollar that comes in gets allocated to a category before the month or the pay period begins. Needs, wants, savings, debt payments, everything gets a name and a number. And when you add up all the categories, the total equals exactly what you earned. Nothing is left floating, nothing is unassigned. Every dollar has a job. The power of this is not mathematical, it is psychological. When you assign a dollar to a category in advance, you have already made the decision about what that dollar is for. You are not making a fresh spending decision every time you pull out your card or open an app. You are simply executing a decision you already made when your head was clear and you were thinking about your actual priorities rather than responding to a craving or a sale or a moment of boredom or a social pressure. That shift from reactive spending to proactive allocation is the entire game, and it is more accessible than most people think. Let us walk through what it actually looks like to build one. You sit down before the month begins, or before the pay period begins if you get paid every 2 weeks, which many people do. You start with your income, not your gross income, the number on your offer letter, your actual take-home pay. The number that lands in your account after taxes and any pre-tax deductions like your health insurance premium or your 401k contribution. That is your real number. That is what you're actually working with. Write it at the top. Let us say your take-home pay for the month is $3,800. That is your starting point. That is the total you're going to distribute across every category until you reach zero. Now you begin assigning and you start with the non-negotiables. The fixed expenses that do not change month to month and that must be paid regardless of anything else. Rent or mortgage. Car payment if you have one. Insurance premiums, minimum debt payments. Any subscription services you have determined are genuinely necessary. These are the walls of the room you're working in. They are not flexible right now. Write them down with their exact amounts. Let us say your rent is $1,100. Your car payment is $290. Your car insurance is $110. Your phone bill is $85. The minimum payment on your credit card is $65. Your health insurance premium comes out pre-tax, so it is already accounted for. That is $1,650 committed before you have done anything discretionary. You subtract that from $3,800, you have $2,150 left to assign. Now you move to the variable necessities. These are the things you genuinely need, but whose amounts fluctuate. Groceries, gas or transportation, utilities, which vary by season. These require you to estimate based on what you actually spend, not what you wish you spent. Look at your last 2 or 3 months of actual spending in these categories, be honest. If you typically spend $350 on groceries, do not write down $200 because you feel like you should be spending less. Write down $350. You can work on reducing it, but the budget has to reflect reality or it fails the moment you try to live inside it. Let us say groceries are $350, gas is $120, and utilities average $140. That is $610 more committed. You now have $1,540 remaining. This is where it gets interesting because now you're in the territory where most people just drift. The money that is left after the bills and the necessities, this is the money that evaporates on Sunday night without a clear accounting. And this is exactly where zero-based budgeting does its most important work. Every dollar remaining needs a job, not a vague category. A specific, intentional allocation that reflects your actual priorities. Some of those dollars go to savings. Not savings in the general sense of whatever is left over at the end. Savings as a line item, a specific amount assigned at the beginning of the month before you spend anything discretionary. Paying yourself first is not just a motivational phrase. It is a structural principle that ensures the savings actually happen instead of being consumed by drift. If you want to save $300 this month, you write $300 in the savings line right now and you treat it with the same non-negotiable weight as the rent. Some of those dollars go toward debt payoff above the minimums. If you have a credit card balance that is costing you 22% annually, every extra dollar you direct toward it is earning you a guaranteed 22% return. That is a job worth assigning dollars to with real intentionality rather than just paying whatever is left at the end of the month. Some of those dollars go to the things that make life livable and enjoyable. Dining out, entertainment, personal care, clothing, hobbies. These are not frivolous. They are part of a real life and they belong in the budget. But they need amounts assigned to them in advance, not unlimited access to whatever happens to be left in the account. And this is the specific line that most people do not have but desperately need. A miscellaneous or buffer category, a small allocation, maybe $50 to $100, that exists specifically for the things that come up in a month that you could not have predicted. The birthday gift you forgot about, the prescription copay, the parking ticket, the small household item that broke. Life produces surprises every month without fail. Budgeting as if it does not is a guarantee of budget failure. When the unexpected thing arrives, and it always does, the person without a buffer either blows the whole budget or feels like a failure and abandons the system entirely. The person with a buffer absorbs the surprise and moves on. When you add up every category, every job you have assigned, and the total equals your income, you have a zero-based budget, not $0, zero unassigned dollars. Every single one has a purpose that you decided in advance with a clear head and a full picture of your priorities. Now let us talk about what happens when you try to live inside this budget, because building it and executing it are two different things. The first month is always the hardest. Not because the system is complicated, but because you discover things about your spending that your avoidance has been protecting you from. You sit down in week 2 and you look at your dining out category and you have already spent more than the amount you assigned. And you have to make a decision. Do you take money from another category to cover it? Do you stop eating out for the rest of the month? Do you acknowledge that you underestimated this category and adjust the number for next month? This moment, this specific uncomfortable collision between your plan and your actual behavior is not a failure of the budget. It is the budget working. The budget is showing you something you needed to see. Before zero-based budgeting, you would have just kept spending in that category until the money was gone without ever consciously registering the overage. Now you're seeing it in real time while you still have the ability to respond. This is the feedback loop that makes the system powerful. Not the planning part though, that matters. the real-time visibility. The fact that every spending decision now happens in the context of a framework that tells you where you stand. When you go to add something to your cart, you know whether the discretionary category it would come from has money left in it or not. That knowledge changes the decision. Not always, you are human, but often enough to meaningfully change the pattern over time. The adjustment period typically takes about 3 months. The first month, you discover what you were actually spending and where the gaps are between your assumptions and your reality. The second month, you adjust the categories based on what you learned, and the budget starts to fit your life more accurately. The third month, the system starts to feel natural, the categories feel right, and you start to see real movement in the numbers that matter to you. Savings growing, debt balance declining, the leak closing. Let us talk about one more thing that zero-based budgeting does that almost no other system does as effectively. It forces a conversation with your values. When every dollar has to be assigned to a category and the categories have to add up to your income, you eventually run out of room. You have more jobs to assign than you have dollars to fill them. And that constraint, which feels frustrating at first, is actually the most clarifying experience in personal finance, because the moment you run out of room, you have to decide what matters more. Does dining out matter more than building the emergency fund to you right now? Does the streaming service you barely use matter more than the extra debt payment that would get you out from under that balance 3 months sooner? Does the impulse purchase you were about to make matter more than the vacation fund you have been wanting to start? These are not rhetorical questions designed to make you feel guilty about spending money on things you enjoy. They are genuine questions about your priorities, and the extraordinary thing about zero-based budgeting is that it surfaces them explicitly rather than letting them be decided by default. When you do not have a budget, your priorities are revealed by what you spend money on, not by what you say matters to you, by where the money actually goes. Most people, if asked, would say that financial security matters to them, that getting out of debt matters to them, that saving for the future matters to them. But the actual allocation of their dollars often tells a different story, not because they are dishonest, but because without a system, the decisions get made one at a time reactively. And the cumulative result does not reflect the values they hold when they are thinking clearly. Zero-based budgeting makes your values explicit and then holds you accountable to them in real time. Every dollar you assign is a vote for what you actually prioritize. Every category you fund and every category you leave underfunded is a declaration about what matters to you right now in your actual life. That visibility can be uncomfortable. It can show you gaps between who you say you are financially and what your dollars are actually doing, but it is also clarifying in a way that nothing else quite is. Because once you see the gap, you can close it. Once you know where the drift is happening, you can redirect the current. Once every dollar has a job, you are the one doing the hiring. Let us bring this back to you and Sunday night and the gap that sits with you at the end of every week. That gap is not a character flaw. It is an information problem. You did not have enough information about your dollars in real time to make fully intentional decisions with all of them. Some got away. Not because you are irresponsible, but because you were reactive in a system that rewards proactivity. You were playing defense against an unstructured flow of money when what you needed was an offense. A plan, a lineup of jobs waiting for the dollars before the dollars had a chance to drift. Zero-based budgeting is that offense. It is you, before the week begins, before the paycheck lands, sitting down with the full picture and assigning every dollar to a purpose that reflects your actual priorities. It is the moment you stop managing money after the fact and start directing it before the fact. That shift is not just financial, it is psychological. It is the difference between feeling controlled by money and feeling in control of it. And feeling in control of money genuinely and structurally rather than just in intention changes the texture of your week. Monday morning feels different when you know exactly what every dollar is doing. The Friday paycheck feels different when you have a plan waiting for it rather than a vague intention to be more careful this time. Sunday night feels different when there's no gap to sit with because nothing was allowed to drift. You deserve that version of Sunday, the quiet one. The one where you check your account and the numbers make sense because you put them there on purpose. The system exists, the knowledge is here. The only thing left is the decision to start. Not next month when things settle down, not after the next paycheck when you will have more room to work with. Now, with the income you have, with the expenses you carry, with the goals that matter to you exactly as they are right now. Every dollar has a job available to it. You are the one who gets to decide what that job is. If this is the kind of conversation that makes your financial life feel more manageable and more yours, then stay with us. Subscribe to Dollar First and keep coming back, because this is just the beginning of what happens when you stop letting your money decide for itself and start putting every single dollar exactly where it belongs.